Hi, my name is Kieran Marisa. I'm a public policy expert. Welcome to Vellum podcast, where we discuss political, socio-economic, and policy issues affecting the Kenyan and regional global landscape. Today we are having amazing guests. We're going to be discussing on the evolution of advertising and even the future of advertising, looking at the Kenyan and regional landscape. And I'll be inviting our special guests who are veterans in the game to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Kieran. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rosalind Gichuru. I like to think of myself as a brand custodian. I have had the opportunity of stewarding the growth and success of both global and local brands for the last 2 decades. I'm passionate about brand building. I'm especially passionate about building strong African brands, as well as really focusing on the next generation of African leadership. So happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Hi, my name is Pheodor Mundia. I think I'll term myself as a behavior change expert. That's what we do as marketers. We try influence behavior. Manage a brand called Blueband across Africa, touching on your, I would say, daily consumer. Our job is to sell nutrition and taste and happiness across. So I'm also passionate about marketing, being in the leadership of marketing in Kenya through the chairmanship of Marketing Society of Kenya. And for me, it's trying to understand how do we ensure that the industry itself is vision-driven, but also mirrors what is happening with the industry at large. So thanks for having me.
Today we're looking at the advertising landscape, the evolution of advertising, hopefully the future of advertising as well, given the various regulatory reforms as well as the new Gen Z and Gen Alpha, given that tech is the future. Now we're also looking at the coming in of AI and how does that affect the future and the landscape of advertising in the country and regionally, considering that we're also working with regional, multinational brands, maybe in the last decade. What milestones can you pick out to just say, it has really, really shaped advertising in Kenya and in the region?
I'll start by saying that I am KCB Group's Marketing and Communications Director. We're currently in 7 different markets, and our ambition is to build a regional powerhouse brand. I think one thing that stands true then and even today is the use of data, and using data to derive insights that then shape the strategies that you then need to implement in order for you to drive the outcomes that the brand has, both from, an affinity perspective, awareness, because again, if people are aware, they'll try. When they try, they'll use it and eventually become loyal users of your brand. So I think for me, it's, yes, there is the use of both traditional and today, digital, platforms. But I think we've got to be able to find the data and the insight that can allow you to do something really special and different to connect with your consumer base. So I think for me, over time, I would say that I have used virtually every single strategy there is to build a brand, traditional channels. I remember, years later, even when we were looking at how we, apportion the spend and to what we apportion the spend, we used to talk about an 80-20-10. 80% of budget going to very traditional forms of advertising, 20% innovating on those traditional channels, and then 10%, just 10% to innovate. But today, you see bigger and bigger spends are going towards digital and leveraging on, the various digital platforms, the various tools, the various opportunities, all in service of connecting with your consumer and making that meaningful impact that can drive the kind of behavior that you want and, generate the outcomes that the brand is looking to accomplish. So there's been a very significant shift, but I think mine is just to say that there is still a place for a blended approach, but we cannot ignore the power of digital, the power of technology, the power of a changing consumer landscape and the need to continue to be relevant. In our part of the world today, though, if you look at traditional forms, TV, radio, there is still a very significant role that they play. So it's blended, in my view.
Over to you. What do you think?
I've had a chance to work as a global leader in terms of driving integration of digital transformation, and that was at Unilever. And then now I head Africa in terms of selling health and nutrition. I think a lot of things remain the same in terms of the traditional space. So general market or traditional market still remains a big size of contribution in terms of where people shop and engage. And in these spaces, nothing much has changed in terms of behavior. But I think what has happened is access to choices and information. So I'll give an example of what we used to do in India. So we realized that most traditional traders did not have access to credit. But then players like us at Unilever then had a lot of data around their transaction because they've been shopkeepers for us for almost 20 plus years. So how do you use that data and create a credit profile and have them access credit to buy more and grow their business? So that's the access that has driven, or the data that has driven change of pivoted the behavior in terms of access of services, etc. When you come to now, let's say media, right? Traditional media still remains quite impactful. I know the share of digital has grown, but what stands out for me, for example, is last week I was in Ethiopia talking to a consumer who's, I would say, bottom-end consumer, and she loves TikTok, accesses TikTok in terms of content, information. It's a search tab as well. So you see the shift has become the search tab is no longer Google, for example. For such people, it's video content through TikTok. So I say the shift in marketing has been, I would say, the approach in accessing choices, and that's what we need to follow.
There's rising conversations on AI. When looking at the advertising landscape, how do you think AI is affecting the advertising landscape? And as change makers, how are you adapting to AI? And how are you using it to propel your brands?
At least for us, AI has brought a lot of benefits, just in terms of the tools and what they allow you to do. So a lot of very interesting things that we're able to do with AI-enabled tools and platforms to engage our consumers in a really different, exciting way. I think that we need to be cautious as well and still apply the human lens to the work that we're doing, the output of some of the things that AI is now allowing us to do. I think for me, we cannot lose the brand authenticity in terms of what we stand for and what we want to communicate and the promise that we want to put out there. But I see a lot of benefit of AI, both from the creative standpoint. I see it very beneficial in terms of the media buying side of things as well, allowing us to be a lot more targeted, allowing us to be a lot more efficient in our spend, allowing us to reach very, very specific customer base, customer segments with very specific messaging in a very interesting way. So I believe that there is a lot of benefit, and it's made us even just more efficient with our time. But at the same time, I'm looking at a lot of brands that have gone heavy on AI in the use of developing of, various creative elements. And you can tell. So a very simple example would be on, the kind of talent you use for your advertising. And I'm still a big believer that, yes, there's a lot of AI-generated images that are being used today, and they've cut out a lot of cost because we do know to do a full-blown shoot and to be able to have an image bank that can allow you to advertise and communicate differently at different times for different purposes is quite costly. But I think there is a place where we must draw the line. But on the same side, I also think that there's been a lot of benefit for us in the advertising space and some of the things that, digital marketing teams, even our agencies are able to do. that are just really exciting and fresh and keep the brand really top of mind. So I would say that there are a lot of good benefits in many different disciplines, but at the same time, we need to watch carefully and not entirely hand over the role of, some things that have worked well over to AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my end, I think AI is a complex word for machine learning. And I think for us, the biggest thing we need to do, or the most important thing we need to do is teach the machines to learn Africa and Kenya and our behaviors. And that means inputting into that data. So what role are you playing in creating nuances that are you? So that the content that is churned from these systems or platforms then relate to what I understand and what I know. And I think that's where the gap is, because we sort of become the consumers and not the creators or the producers of AI. So one of the biggest roles we have there as marketers is ensuring that we input into that. And I like what you said. I think one of the best things we've gotten from AI is efficiency, from a media buying, digital buying, insights-led approach to doing stuff. So you're able to get efficiencies and report them. Because before, reporting who's seeing you, when they're seeing you, how long they're seeing you was not there or was a bit tedious. So now you can get that at a click of a button based on the systems that are there. But also nothing replaces real insights when you have one-on-one engagement with your consumer. So I think it's a blend of that. The exciting bit for me is the creative bit, which I think has a lot of bandwidth, where I'll give an example. I think on Monday, I had a team of almost 50 people on set shooting content for my image bank and video bank, etc. But at the same time, I can go to my AI app and search something. I'll probably get 4 or 5 different images in 5 minutes or less, which tells you in another maybe year or two, I do not need that level of investment in that setup. Probably I need investment in teaching the machine on what would be ideal for my consumers and the content they need. So I think that space of creative space is quite exciting for me, because there's so much you can do as an individual, as a marketer, without having a large ecosystem, especially where resources are limited. And I said it doesn't replace the talent that is there, but I think it sort of supplements whatever is there. So if I need to drive or probably give a proposal at the board level, and I don't have a render of a certain product, I probably will just need to go to AI site and get a render done in less than 10 minutes and save time in sharing my idea, etc. So I think that is opportunity I see, and I find it quite exciting.
Considering we are in a more of a people space, in as much as we're trying to merge with tech, are we going to lose that organic human touch, where we're having a lot of maybe ads looking too similar to AI? I feel like, because even right now, when you're looking at maybe publications, when you're looking at images, you can tell this is AI. And then you're losing that human element. I feel like that's what creativity and innovation drives and thrives most. So I don't know, do you think that's a danger?
In banking, we talk about a phygital world where we provide that physical opportunity to engage your customer, but at the same time recognize that the customers are busy and they can do a lot of stuff digitally. They're banking. I believe nothing can ever replace the human touch. And there's been a lot of debate about do banks need to invest so much in branches? And the interesting thing that you will notice even today, in this digital explosion world that we're living in, branches are still being opened. So what does that mean? It means that we can go ahead and do mundane tasks, make a transfer, make a payment, etc. on your digital channels, but you still need a place to come in and have that honest conversation about your business, about what you need to do to grow your business, what kind of product, how do I get from where I am today to where I want to be tomorrow? So in our world, the service world, and certainly the banking world, nothing replaces conversations, the human touch, having a place where you can get proper advice that can enable you to grow yourself personally, your business, and even think legacy for your children and their children. Perhaps it depends on the category that you are responsible for. But I can safely say that in the banking and financial services sector, the digital explosion has been very good for us, but it hasn't replaced the human touch that is very necessary for customers. When it comes to money matters, it's everything. Money makes the world go round, as they say. So you really do want to sit in front of a concerned branch manager or a relationship manager and have a real genuine conversation about the status of your affairs and what you need to do about them. So nothing, in my view, should replace that human engagement or that human touch. Let's also go into some of the AI tools like ChatGPT, now DeepSeek, and the many others. Yes, they have done a lot to enhance our efficiency in our writing. You feed it. Of course, the more you feed it, the better it understands you, your way of thinking, your way of writing, and it gives you something really good back. However, I still think it takes you going through it again to really ask yourself, have I lost something in my communication? You have to bring back your authenticity into how it has structured its response to you. But yes, it has helped with that efficiency. So for me, really need to think about the categories that we are operating in, the customer, and do a blend. There's a role for engagement.
Yeah, so totally agree. Will things look similar? I think it's similar to what you have with Shutterstock or Imagebox because everyone goes and buys the same image.
Yeah.
Very few people produce. So you don't have dark-looking, black-looking models with tough hair like we do or nice long hair like we do available on images. So every brand has the same posts on digital, with just the logo and the caption that is different. So I think what we need to do is invest back into this system. So I'll give an example of what we do at Flora Food Group. What we've done is we have machine learning where we currently create content that we feed it. Over time, the machine will be able to understand what sort of content our consumers need and what content is ingrained to the brand. Yeah, so I think for AI to give you value, you also have to invest back in it. You can't just be a consumer and not put back. At the same time, nothing replaces the human contact, right? Or one-on-one space. So even within our team, then our business, for example, you try every month at least hit 100 hours, outside your desk, whether you're in trade, engaging with your shopkeeper, supermarket, or your consumer on the shelf, or even going to the consumer homes and asking those questions. And for me, that's where I get more insights. For example, I think it was last year around November, I was in Mukuru, talking to this lady with 2 kids and asking what sort of content do you engage. And shockingly enough, it was still TikTok. Yeah. Then we couldn't advertise on TikTok. Now we can. But that tells you the sort of touch points that matter to these people or where they sort of find engaging content. You cannot find that by sitting behind your desk and waiting for the machine to tell you what to do, etc. Another example would be I tasked one of my brand managers to give me a list of digital agencies in Kenya. And for me, the first thing I would do is reach out to people on WhatsApp and like, hi, Rosalind, which agencies are you using? Kieran, which is your best agency? Give me top 3. And she kept quiet, went to ChatGPT, gave me a list of 10, 11 agencies. I was like, wow, things have changed. I was calling guys, I was like, give me a top 3, top 4. She had them all, but also that tells you if your digital agency has not sort of positioned itself in digitally for the systems to pick you up, then you're also missing out. So I think it's a blend of inputting and investing behind the systems, or you'll probably be in a dark space and no one will see you.
On a light note, looking at African brands, the way people say it's things are not the way they used to be. Ads. When you look at ads back then, and I'll be sitting in front of my TV and watching those ads. The ads right now, when people say, hey, if you watch this ad, you need to be married with a couple of kids along the way by now. I don't know. What do you think are some of the most impactful, maybe really adverts that really stood out for you over the years, looking at this most of the African ads when you're looking at even in Kenya locally?
I think the KCB's WRC Feel the Raw.
Yeah.
That really has done an amazing job of creating excitement as a build-up to not just the rally, but so many other touch points that we have brought to life to, number one, to really stamp our authority as a brand that has really supported motorsports for the last 2 decades, like no other. And I was reflecting on the rally as I was coming here today and thinking that our journey started as far back as 2002, when it was just something local. So I would imagine the marketing team then were dealing with a very Kenya-centric platform or asset. Today, even as we get ready to talk about WRC after this, we are so privileged to be hosting a global stage. But more importantly, with the Africa Rally Championship and the fact that KCB has footprint in 7 different markets, we are talking about an asset that is now a regional jewel for us. One of the things that I have loved most about WRC over the last 3 years, is how much fun, I must say, the team are having with this particular asset. Last year, for example, we partnered with a brand very well known on social media, 254, and they designed a line exclusively for WRC. And I cannot tell you the power of the merchandise that has been developed in support of WRC. I mean, you walk around on the weekend where you'd think someone doesn't want to wear branded, attire, and they are rocking up in like really trendy stuff. When I think about all the different MSMEs that we have worked with during, the period around the rally, when I think about how we have infused a sustainable lens to the things that we are doing, when I think about how we have brought in the customer in a very, very exciting, yet at the end of the day, we do want to ensure that our products are relevant and we can actually show the business that this is not just a cost. We're also bringing back a commercial aspect to it. So for me, WRC has been super exciting. I also do admire some of the work the breweries have done, whether through the Tusker brand, the Guinness brand. I think about Safaricom a few years ago. They had brought a lot of pride to who we are as Kenyans, and really touching on the role they were playing in the lives of, the community. So I think for me, I have enjoyed seeing brands moving from a functional, emotional space to a space where they are really affirming the purpose behind why they exist. And usually that's related to them having an impact on others and the communities where they operate. So that has been very moving. I've also seen brands really solving the greatest problems of the world today and finding an authentic voice in that. And that has been very exciting because here in Africa, if you just even think through the SDGs, whether it's a water, a poverty, economic empowerment, the joblessness, the need to create jobs, I'm seeing brands show up and want to do good. African brands are going back and finding a really meaningful message that speaks to the day-to-day lives of the consumers. A decade plus ago, there was a lot of optimism about Africa then, the African Renaissance, we were no longer then the dark continent. And we led a team to create a campaign that was 1 billion reasons to believe in Africa. It moved from functional, emotional to now what we call cultural leadership, where an iconic brand can actually speak into the culture of the day. And I think that is the most powerful place, the highest calling for any brand. And I think what better place than Africa or Kenya or the East African region to be able to speak back into the culture of the day, to speak hope, to speak into the greatest challenges of our nation or nations. So there's a lot of different ones, and I like the work that I'm seeing from this part of the world.
If you think about advertising, so has it changed? So sorry to use this example. If you think it's changed, You just need to check your ID. You need to check your blood sugar. You need to check your salt intake. Because at the end of the day, advertisement is a brand communicating something in an engaging, disruptive, entertaining way. Then we didn't have choices. So ads that I try to recall would be like Blue Band, Step by Step, Day by Day. Those songs used to linger with you because you only watch an ad during news time.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to watch. So as you go to school, walk back, do your, normal duties, that's something that stuck with you. Or even the mom who used to ride the bike to pass the sandwich back to the kid. It was entertaining then, yeah? Or even Omo with Powerform, or, Tafuni.
Yeah.
Those are the ads then because you were very limited to what you could, you had interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
But now moving forward to what we have now, I think in a day you're probably served with maybe 200 plus ads, which is not what you had before. So you're very discerning at what is disruptive. Your levels of, say, cutting through the clutter is next level because every day you're reviewing and saying what is disruptive enough. We have influencers these days churning content about the brand that is more impactful than the ad itself you put on TV. So I think that is what has changed in that space. Some of the exciting campaigns I would say I've seen actually done was one I did with Sunlight, Women of More, which was maybe 3-4 years ago, where we actually took down our brand and put women-owned businesses on our platforms to empower women for their business to be known. Yeah, and for me, that was more powerful because then you're empowering people, you're using the strength of the brand and empowering your consumers to be more in what they're doing. Entertainment still remains key. I think the speed of ads vary from market. So when I worked in Uganda, your asset has to be a story. 40 seconds plus 60 minutes to 2 minutes. It can't be fast. It has to be someone giving the story, example, etc. If you come with your lens of Kenya or South Africa, you'll cut that ad and you'll say it will not work. But to the consumer, that works. For us in Kenya, dance culture remains the same. So we just launched Blue Band Choco, which has been quite a success. We have Trio Mio, who's our brand ambassador. And what stands out for the consumer is the music and entertainment. So I think at the end of the day, content has to be entertaining. It has to be disruptive and drive the message. Nothing much has changed, it's just the platforms and the choices that we have now.
I mean, you're having brands that have been in the game for so long. I think it's very, very important to resonate with your customer base, your consumer base. How can African brands leverage, that connection? How can they build that trust? Even when you're talking about the Safaricom ads, the way they resonated more with the people. When I'm thinking about Blue Band, every single margarine, you call it Blue Band nowadays. Yeah. So how are we looking at that? How can we make sure that the coming brands and even the brands that have already been there, how can they adapt to making sure that they can still, in the advertising space, still resonate with the people, resonate with their consumers, despite the fact that the demographic is changing?
A great question. KCB is 128 years old. Oh. It's a multi-generational brand. And that's why, I refer back to the marketers in 2002, first sort of connecting the brand to motorsport. And here we are 2 decades later, talking about WRC, providing our Kenyan motorsport enthusiasts and fans an opportunity to be exposed to a global platform. And even then how we stretch it into the region. The greatest gift of these brands is that they are trusted, all of them. They are trusted brands. They are brands whose heritage is built on trust. Trust is about doing what you said. It's about honesty. It's about credibility. And that is something no brand can compromise. And whether it's in the FMCG space, and when you think about when you produce some of these products, I'm sure your production standards are uncompromising. You've got to deliver the product at the right level because there is a consumer there. So I think if you lose it with your consumers, therein lies the problem. And for us in the service business, we just have to ensure that we build enough equity such that when we do fail a consumer, maybe we didn't respond to you or come back to you on time, you're able to forgive us and we're able to carry on this relationship. So I think brands must be custodians of their promise. They must be very clear about who they are and what they stand for and what they don't stand for. I think they must be very, very consistent in what they do. But above all, brands need to make investments along the way that are, data informed, insight informed, because it's so important for you to be aware of the changing landscape. We have the benefit of looking back and seeing where we've come from, what worked, what didn't work. But we must be also the ones who sort of bring a fresh new way, a fresh new thinking that balances the heritage, the past, but also is able to take the business forward in a fresh new way, but really paying, respect to where these brands have come from. So interesting question. And that's, I think for me, possibly one of the most exciting things about what I do. I always envision a generation of both employees and consumers or customers who will have the benefit of saying that this brand is 200 years old. And for me, short story, my father worked for KCB 52 years ago.
Wow.
So here I am at this same very KCB. So I always feel a sense of responsibility that we are the ones who must carry on this generational brand in a different, fresh way, but bring in a younger consumer base. And we're ripe for that. When we profile our customers, our current customers, they are slightly older. So we are at the phase where we are revamping our youth proposition to ensure that we now bring in that younger consumer base. But we have also not just taken it upon ourselves to imagine what they want. We've invested a lot in generating the right levels of information engagements to be able to deliver a value proposition that makes sense to them. That is, of course, digital first. I think there's both a privilege for us, but at the same time, a huge responsibility to ensure that we're still fresh.
So interesting question. Because the first thing you do as a brand manager is how do I rebrand, relaunch? So same case, I've had the opportunity to work for brands that have been there for centuries, decades plus, etc. And I think one of the things that any brand should not forget is you're there because you're solving a certain problem.
Yeah.
And that problem does not change. It just evolves over time. Yeah. But the need or human need is still real. And that's what you need to understand. What human problem, human need am I addressing? Either as a service, so you think about Safaricom is connecting people from maybe making calls now through data or through M-Pesa transactions. Yeah, if it's Blue Band, it's your mom offering you a healthy breakfast at the end of the day. Yeah, and what she passes down is not the brand. She passes down a healthy breakfast and trying to do good for you through what she can access, right? So there are things that we should not change despite what is happening, and those are what we call brand intrinsic assets. Yeah, so over time, those are what stick in the mind of a consumer over time. But the delivery of that is what you can evolve with. When you think about your brand, stick to the human truth and the problem that you're solving, but then make it in an exciting way. So you think about the African population, even coming down close to East Africa. The addressable market is 70%, 77, 78% young people. Yeah. So how they access information and the solutions you're offering are very different from what we did, our parents did. So the delivery of it is what you need to factor in, but still remain true to the core of what your brand delivers. Yeah.
With the rise of technology, digital advertising and whatnot, we're seeing people move towards, maybe social media for advertising. People are moving away from traditional forms of advertising. I think even right now, to watch news, people stream news online. People don't go back to the organic way of watching TV from morning till evening. We're now moving towards a streaming generation. And we're having a situation where attention spans, are diminishing less and less. Nowadays you just need to watch like maybe 30-second, 1 minute clip. If it's too long, somebody skips to the next thing. So how can we ensure that brands are staying relevant, but at the same time, how can brands differentiate themselves? Because even now we're having AI coming in, we're having a lot of people in the sector coming up with very similar ads, very similar brands. You're being hit with like maybe 10, you've seen like 10, 15 similar ads in one day. You can't even differentiate and know, oh, this one is for this brand, this one is for this brand, because they're all blurring in together. How do you make sure that you can differentiate yourselves? How can you stand out in such an environment?
It's true. There's a lot of brands that are offering very similar products. I think what creates one level of differentiation is the experience that one brand gives versus another. For those brands where that are all converging on social media, for example, where perhaps that experience, it's not like having an offline experience, where I have a good RM versus another. I would say we talk a lot about the power of storytelling. And it's all about how you connect with your consumers in a short, sharp, effective way. I'm thinking about some of the interesting things that we've noted over the last, over the last decade, a significant rise of perhaps maybe influencer marketing, for example. And some of the reasons why brands are using influencers now more than ever before. And it's really about content that is delivered differently to connect to you in a more appealing way. And even where brands are using like nano influencers, multitudes of them, again, it just provides you a greater opportunity to deliver your message differently, authentically, with a hope that you will appeal to a particular customer, more quickly and in a more relevant way on social, when they're on social, as quick as possible. I think for me, two things. Outside of digital channels, the experience that a brand gives, and on digital platforms, I would say it's really the use of the power of storytelling to be able to speak to the right person at the right time with the right level of information based on perhaps even what they do on social, what they're looking for, what they're listening to, what they're engaging in, speaking to them with the right message at the right time. And I think underpinning all of that is the power of data and analytics and what you do with it as a brand.
One thing I'll pick from her is being authentic. So we're going to the month of love. Apparently, that's what they call it. But you'll see a lot of similar ads, probably similar models, similar campaigns telling you the same thing. But does the brand stand out? Yeah, that's a question. Yeah. So I think it's key for the brand to know what are the moments that matter to the consumers. Yeah, you don't have to be doing everything or at every space because everyone is there. Just need to choose those moments that matter to them and also know what matters to them in terms of what you're communicating. Yeah. So if I look at the beauty about AI and digital is these days, before we would probably shoot an ad, some content, take it to consumers, listen to them, understand, does it trigger what works? Then you go back, alter it, then come back and ask them, does this ad speak to you? Does it make sense, etc.? These days, we have platforms that allow us to do that much quicker. So I'll put up A/B testing, for example, on a digital post that I know whether the creative works for my consumer or not. I'll put up an ad and in front of a camera and machine learning, I'll see how your pupil is moving, how your lip is moving, are you smiling, are you entertained, are you happy, are you sad, what emotions are going through, I think, almost 100 different impressions on your face. And I'll know whether that content matters to you. So I think there's need for us to leverage data to churn content that matters and stands out. And I know sometimes someone will say we don't have the resources to use all these AI platforms, these digital platforms. But as we said, and I think we've reiterated that a lot, nothing beats a human engagement. Go to your consumers, top 3-4 consumers, ask them, what do you think about this ad? Yeah. Does it make you feel the way I think it should make you feel? And that way you will be able to break through the clutter.
Looking at it, maybe something more technical from a regulatory and policy landscape. Do you think that the regulatory and policy landscape in Kenya and even within the region is enabling advertising and the growth given just how fast technology and innovation are coming up, do you think that Kenya's regulatory and policy landscape are enabling that environment, or are we doing catch up? Are we playing catch up?
I think, in my view, we're playing catch up.
Mm-hmm.
In some instances, we are lagging.
Mm.
And in other instances, if you think about data protection and the laws around that, and the compliance that is required around that, we're seeing that enforcement more and more. And we're spending a lot more time understanding what the do's and don'ts are and ensuring that we are complying. I think it's good for consumers, especially around being invasive, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about children, it's coming up, and it's coming up fast. And also how brands are using data, particularly data that they have collected. And, I am happy to note the progress that's being made in that regard. I think there is still a way to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think even just the opt-in options, opt-out options, there was a period where I think it could potentially have gotten out of control.
Mm-hmm.
You go make a purchase at a store, and then they start sending you these messages, very, very invasive.
Mm.
So I'm happy to note the progress that's being made around data protection and ensuring that brands are compliant. And in some instances, even where brands are being fined for certain things that they're doing. Of course, consumers also know that they have rights now, particularly around the use of images and stuff like that. So I think, yes, we are lagging behind, but we have made significant progress.
Okay.
So we think about policies, even the education system, it will always be lagging because it's research-led. Yeah. So for me to say today I want to have a policy against cookies, I need to have data done on a certain sample set that shows this data and the impact of it.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that is published and comes into enforcement, something else has come up. So policies and regulations will always be lagging behind, but what they fix or try to address are the basics, because the basics never change. So the need for privacy will never change. The need for ethical advertising and making claims that are true never changes, right? So I had the privilege of leading the Marketing Society of Kenya as chairman. And one of the things we tried or pushed for was ensuring that it's put in law that we have certain standards in advertising. And this was through a lot of collaboration with advertising body in Kenya, a PR body in Kenya, etc., to ensure that those standards are there. They're still not enforceable, but the standards exist. And for example, I think where we've made good strides would be the data protection law, where these days, if someone spams me, there's a process and a system that is able to hold them accountable. Where we still need to move a bit faster is on claims, because any brand will come and say, I'm the best brand in Kenya delivering X, but based on which data points? You probably, and you see most brands will put an asterisk and say, based on 100 consumers. Is that really factual? Is it something you should be talking about? And if you do, and I have a complaint against that, where do I go and enforce that? And once I enforce that, is the industry willing to take down that content and lose revenue from it? So those are the questions I think that are still yet to be addressed. But the basics should remain. And I think any marketer, advertiser should ensure that they do it ethically. Yeah, so that when you go home, you can tell your kids, I did some work today and it was good. But will we ever catch up? I don't think we will. But that's where everyone has to play a role. If I look at what my kids are watching at home, sometimes on YouTube Kids, sometimes I have to go and sift and say, not interested, do not show this again, etc. Because the content is not regulated from Kenya. It's regulated from a different zone, and they have the different belief systems and laws. So I think if everyone does their part, we will be moving forward, but it will never catch up.
Just to wind up, as we continue to become more of a global village with the evolution of technology, I'm just thinking, what can you project for the advertising sector in Kenya? And also, in that regard, how can we make sure that brands become borderless? because we're looking at a situation where the data tells us we have different ways to approach different markets. And now we're having a situation where we're having apps that can access everywhere. You're having a reach, you're looking at maybe the infographics, you're looking at, you have people watching from Kenya, people watching from South Africa, people watching from across the globe. How can we ensure that Kenyan brands are borderless? We're still staying true to who we are as a Kenyan brand, but we are still influencing the global and playing on the global landscape.
This little gadget just has completely broken the borders. We're able to communicate further than we ever could have. And that's just going to continue. I think we're able to access information from virtually every corner of this world. And you can only imagine the same for us. Our brands, our messaging, our communication is going to be seen by, literally across the globe. It all depends on what someone is looking for. I think the beauty about that, when I think about, Africans in the diaspora, it gives them an opportunity to connect back with what's going on in their African markets and just remain in touch. But I really think that while we are remaining core to who we are serving today, I think for brands that have bigger aspirations, maybe to be a dominant force in this part of the region or Pan-African or across the continent, or an African brand that has a strong voice and message on global platforms, if that is the ambition of the brand beyond what it is they're looking to do locally, I think then, the internet gives us a good opportunity to position ourselves accordingly in those spaces. So it has a lot to do with, for me, I think the ambition of the brand, the footprint of the brand, who the brand is looking to appeal to, and a strong brand, African brand, I believe should be able to have a strong message on global platforms. And I think that's the opportunity that this borderless internet has allowed us, to be as brands. So I think there's lots of opportunities for African brands to really show up and spread their message across the globe.
I can put an ad even on Citizen TV, but the person watching it is on YouTube in Australia, right? So that is currently happening. And I think that is a good thing, because your reach goes beyond, but is your product there, your service available to those you're communicating to? That's a question you need to ask yourself about efficiencies. I think the other bit for me is for those who are soccer fans, and sorry for the Man U guys last weekend. When you're watching football, the ads you see are very different from what someone else in Malawi is seeing, someone else in Europe is seeing, and someone else in Asia is seeing, because they're able to use the broadcasting technology to show you content that matters to you based on the licenses and adverts. So you could be watching the same match, but you're seeing a Blue Band ad, someone is seeing a KCB ad, someone is seeing a beer ad from different localities, so on, etc. I think that's the beauty of not having any borders, because you're using the same platform talking to multiple people. What is the risk I see? It's not really a risk. I think it's a pivot. I think current advertising in Kenya sits at around 90 billion. What is reported is around 67 billion. I believe part of that 25 billion that has moved has gone to digital. And the sad reality of it is we're paying that in foreign currency and is not coming to sort of the creative space locally, fully, right? So you have big investments or big platforms like the traditional media platforms losing out. But the amount of money they're losing out is not coming back to the ecosystem. And what do I mean by that? We find influencers being paid now, which means sort of the democratized advertisement, so that anyone who has content that is relatable, engaging can be paid. But the amount of money they're being paid does not commensurate to what we've lost as an ecosystem. And I think that's what we need to balance, where if 40% of our marketing spend has gone digital, which means you're paying in dollars, paying Meta, paying TikTok, Google, etc., how is that money still coming back to the same ecosystem, churning the content? And that's where policies, regulations, and industry leaders like Rosalind, myself, other organizations and brands need to sit and say, as a government and as an industry, how do we ensure that the content that benefits from us is able to give back to the same ecosystem? And I'm glad to see content creators making money in Kenya, but I believe they should be making more, and they should make more. And capability programs to improve that should happen, because the consumption or the money will follow the eyeballs. Yeah, and if the eyeballs are with all of us, then they should also be equally compensated. So I think that's the pivot we'll see and continue seeing, where digital takes a bigger chunk of advertisement spend, but do we still get it back in our ecosystem in Kenya? I think that's a big question.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, on a light note, Rosalind, if you can give us a behind the scenes on the WRC, what to expect.
And free tickets.
You know, the rally is free, yeah? You just need to show up in Naivasha between March 20th and 23rd. We're really excited. Yeah. We have a good lineup of international rally drivers coming in, but we also have our Kenyan drivers, African drivers also part of that group. We're really excited at KCB to be sponsoring 4 drivers. Kieran, who's an ARC champion.
Not me.
Not you.
And then there's Nikhil. He's actually on a wheelchair. And so very inspiring story behind what he does. We have Evans Kivisi, who took a hiatus last year, coming back. And for the very first time, Tanisha, who is a mother-daughter duo. So she's the driver. I think she's 20. And her mom is her navigator. So super excited to be able to just really support young drivers. So for KCB, I mean, we go all out with the WRC. We currently have a campaign in market. All we're asking you to do is open a gold savings account, deposit, and you stand a chance to win. What we've done is curated, relevant prizes depending on the month. So January, we had 50 people win school fees. In this love month, February, we're going to be awarding a few consumers, with a cash prize, just, to enjoy a lovely Valentine meal together with your loved ones. In March, we're going to be awarding fuel. In April, Easter, we're going to be awarding boozies. And we have a grand prize where the grand winner stands to win an 1/8 of an acre at Vipingo, thanks to Centum. So we've also built a lot of commercial relevance around the WRC. A lot of different engagements will be happening together with our drivers. A lot of different road shows. And all this will culminate to the 3 days in Naivasha, where we will be hosting a lot of our clients. And we also have an interesting concept we've called the KCB Den, where all you need to do is be a customer or become a customer, and you have access to this space where you can just engage, have a good time, watch the rally in a beautiful setting. And just... For those of us who remember the rally from back in the day, the nostalgia around that, or for those of us with young kids, you've promised you're bringing your kids, give them that chance, to experience the rally firsthand. So, there's a lot going on, but super excited. And I talked about amazing merchandise.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. I'll be excited. Hopefully, even when we have. As we've been having this conversation, we're excited to see the advertising campaigns that you have to show us for WRC. Anyway, I am honored to have hosted you. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to our audience, keep it Vellum.